Hi, everybody. My name is Sage. I am, for this video, it's, I think, valuable to know. I'm executive director of the Houseless Movement Charity and the minister of the Church of the Nomadic Spirit. And uh, this is kind of being this is a bit of a rushed thing that I'm doing here, but I wanted to put together a quick overview of kind of an orientation for volunteers that work in our group. And the reason I want to do that is because I think what we do is a little unique, um, as far as traditional homeless services go. And I think that you should know who we are, before you decide to become a volunteer, which 100% I am so thankful for and desperately in need of. Uh, None of this work could ever happen without you. It's physically impossible, monetarily, physically impossible. And the next stage is volunteers, and there's been reasons why I couldn't do volunteers. It's logistical zoning stuff. But if you are listening to this, that is because that has gotten resolved. Hooray! So, at any rate, I hope this doesn't go too long. I just wanted to point out some things. So, from an introduction point of view, you have to know that this is all about acceptance. What we do is accepting where people are today. And conversely, it used to be like I used to say something like, oh, it's meeting people where they are today to help them get to where they want to be tomorrow. I've dropped that last point. That's none of my business. Um, I have learned that I can't change people. I can't make people be something I want them to be, but they aren't. And so I have just gotten to this point of just being accepting. I am not. We are not a rehabilitation center. We are not trying to encourage people to get off of drugs. We are not trying to encourage people to do anything. That's not who we are. Um, a lot of this, interestingly, is inspired by Dorothy Day, um, which has a connection. Or we have a great group, the Peter Morin Center. But Dorothy Day, there was a great story in one of her books where she said she was always out on tour speaking and stuff, and she said she came back to her house where people were living that she was sheltering, and there was a sign up on the wall that said everyone must be up by 10 a.m. and must help with chores. And the first thing she did was take that sign down. And basically, the reason was because that's not who they were. And it was basically because of one guy. There was some alcoholic that slept all day and didn't do anything, and all the other people were upset that they were doing all the work and he wasn't doing anything. Um, that's not what she was about. It was just acceptance and love, acceptance and love. And it's radical. It's so crazy to just be acceptance and love. We are all very transactional in America. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but I know that for a fact in America. And that's not us. So, that said, if you're like, well, one of the things I hear, I want to help people that want help. That's not who I work with. I don't know anybody that wants help. If they want help, they've gone somewhere else. Because that's not what we do. We do not help them. So just be aware of that, okay? It is love and acceptance. Now, do we have rules? Yes, we have rules. Interestingly, the very first rule, the board of directors of the Houseless Movement is primarily made up of homeless people. And the number one rule they made was they wanted no meth and no fentanyl in the building. And that's interesting because there were two people at that time, and they both were active meth users. And I'm like, why do you want that? And they said, because I want to go someplace that's positive. So we do not allow meth and fentanyl use in our facility. If a person is caught using meth and fentanyl, they are asked to leave for the day. If they keep doing it, but I really honestly haven't had a problem with it in a long time. So that is that, okay? But it's not hateful. It's not meant to be judgmental or prosecutorial. It is just like, hey, man, you got to go outside to do that. I'm sorry. I know it's cold, but we don't do that here. So you gotta leave for the day. Obviously, we don't like stealing. And physical fighting. Now, what you are going, if you can get people, and again, I haven't seen that in a long time. Typically, the issue that you're going to probably encounter are severely mentally ill people, which always strikes me as so bizarre that they're coming to us because they have nowhere else to go. And I'm like, what do I know about helping mentally ill people? Nothing. But sometimes I will notice that people will get upset with them because sometimes people believe they're faking it. It starts to kind of trigger their mental illness. And so what I can tell you is my de-escalation has been really, really valuable. Like I've tried in my journey on this to try to out yell somebody, out aggressive them. I can't do it. I can't do it. It just keeps going up and up and up and up. But I can seem to bring the energy down. Like, hey man, it's cool. Maybe somebody needs to take a walk. I've had people get people out, and I've locked the door for a little while just so they don't keep coming back. De-escalation is really been really effective. Okay. So that's that. What do you do as a volunteer? What are your roles? What are the roles of a volunteer? The best thing I can offer you is to just hang out with people. Just sit around and be a friend to them. Maybe you could try playing a game of cards. Maybe you could get out a game. Maybe you could work on a craft. We try to have art supplies laying around. We have bike supplies. You like working on bicycles. But obviously, if you see something like there's trash and you want to clean it up, that would be wonderful. If things are disorganized, you can organize them. Very much an empowering person. I would ask that you not maybe just start a new initiative without talking about it. The biggest one that comes to mind is clothes. A lot of people love clothes. I'm on an anti-clothes mission right at the moment, but that'll probably change. You just get overwhelmed by clothes. Trust me. People hate throwing away their clothes, so they like donating them, and then they just bring piles and piles of clothes, which I'm very thankful for, but they end up just sitting, and then they end up getting thrown away, and it's a big thing. So right now I'm anti-clothes. We also don't have a freezer or a refrigerator. That's sort of intentional. Those are problematic. I like food that can be, food just gets rotten and sits in a refrigerator or a freezer. Then your freezer goes bad, and then you have rotten food everywhere. Oh my Lord, it's terrible. And I'm not saying those things won't come down the pipe, but that's where we're at as of this video. I like food that can, dry goods, right? Canned food, dry goods, things that don't need refrigerated or frozen. But, like the other thing that I'm very into is finding what houseless people like. What do they like to do? Hey, would you like to draw? Would you like to paint? Would you like to work on bicycles? Would you like to listen to music? Would you like to, I don't know. Like so I feel like a lot of houseless people have been stripped of their humanity, and they feel less than human, and by all accounts, society kind of pigeonholes them as less than human. And so if you can find things that a homeless person might enjoy doing that is kind of human, I can't think of anything I wouldn't want you to do. Do it. So, that's it. That's pretty much it. What to expect? I don't know how it would seem to you, but it could seem kind of chaotic. People just hang out and do whatever they want, as long as they aren't bothering something. Some people sleep. Some people, most people just hang out and talk. And that is that. Sometimes emotions get heated. And again, de-escalation seems to work for me. I'm not saying don't ever call the police, but every time the police are called, it goes on our record, and then it's used as ammunition to shut us down. We once were accused of stealing something from the neighbors, and then when it was investigated, we stole two things. Somebody picked a flower, which they shouldn't have done, I agree, and someone plugged their phone into a power outlet, which is stealing electricity. But the newspaper story is Sage's homeless center people are stealing from neighbors. You see, so or Sage's homeless center has had 100 calls to the police since XYZ. And then they just use it to be like, see, they can't handle it. They can't handle it. And so if something can be handled without police, by all means. But if you feel unsafe, leave or call the police. Do whatever. If the place is burning down, by all means, call the fire department. Unless, of course, you can put it out with a fire extinguisher. That would be okay. That would be good too. Yeah, I'm not saying don't ever call the police or anybody, EMS or fire or whatever. I will say that overdoses, if they do happen, we usually have a lot of Narcan. Those usually are handled internally. And the homeless people know how to do that. they'll bring people back. But we don't typically have overdoses because we're really trying to keep people from using those kinds of drugs in our facility. But it can certainly happen. So that is that. I'm just looking at training and orientation. Required training people must go through. I'm thinking this video. It's the most organization of this kind of work that I've ever done. Time commitments. The biggest deals are opening the building and closing the building. So this is what they're going to do to you. They are incredibly smart and incredibly persuasive. They are going to try to get you to keep it open longer than you wanted, and ultimately are going to want you to let them sleep in the building. We cannot have people sleep in the building. No, no, no. The biggest thing you can do is if you say the building is closing at 7 o'clock or the building is closing at 5 o'clock, you let them know that, and there's a clock on the wall so they can see the time. You have to hold it to it, and they will leave. Okay? They will not physically fight you over it. They may try to convince you. They try to convince me all the time, and sometimes I'm like, well, that's a good reason. If there is another person there having another event, then just make sure then they're going to start their event later. That's fine, but coordinate with that coordinator and who they want to keep in the building, and everybody else must go, but no sleeping in the building. I can't express how important that is, because that's how the fire department will shut us down. No sleeping, no overnight in the building. Do you understand? It's it's your rule. Your number one rule: no sleeping in the building. When you close the building, you go around and make sure nobody is sleeping anywhere in the building. Okay? No sleeping in the building. That's your rule. Okay, policies. I think you got that. Safety. We don't have sign-in. There is no time limit how long a person can be there. Typically, now sometimes people will ask, they'll say, can I take food home? Like, can I take a loaf of bread home? And that always hurts me, but I usually say no, because I don't have enough bread, for example, to give everybody a loaf of bread. So what I tell them is make some sandwiches and go home. Make them and take them. That's what I say sometimes. So that's kind of painful. Maybe there will be a time where we do give away food to take home, but I don't really have that right now. If there is one thing that I'd like to grow, it's probably the food, is to have food that people could come and take. Scheduling, very flexible. Mostly the most important part is somebody that closes the building at a reasonable hour. I usually between 5 and 7 p.m. is what I like. The later you go, the longer they're going to want to stay. And then, it's just, and if it's winter time, it's so painful to force people out into the cold. It's just always painful. It's painful. I will make sure you have my phone number, but my phone number is 330-416-7519. 330-416-7519. You're welcome to contact me anytime. Hopefully you're done like at 7 p.m. Obviously things may change, but that's the timing. I'm thinking things I try to get everything done by 7 p.m. That's where I'm at right now, But we don't have name badges. we don't require people to do anything. They don't have to pick up after themselves. They don't have to do anything. And I think, if they want to, when you are there to serve, okay? You are not there to guide, to parent, to chastise. You are there to accept, love, and serve. Now, if, say, somebody spills a cup of coffee, almost always they want to go and help. But if for some reason they don't, that's it. And if you don't want to pick it up, don't pick it up. I'm not asking you to pick it up either. If you like flies and rats, just let the food and coffee sit on the floor. It would be cool if somebody did something, but when I get there, I'll do it, okay? Mostly, I want you there to just make sure people aren't killing each other and that the place is closed at a reasonable hour. And maybe the place is open, Maybe you open it and close it. That would be amazing. Let's see, inspiration. So, remind them of a positive difference they can make. Yeah. The reason I've chosen the place to run like this is because these people feel utterly terrible about themselves. They've lost everything, which is completely anti-American. They are addicted to drugs that they can't stop, which makes them weak. It just goes on and on. And the people that help homeless people, by and large, are piling on the judgment. Why didn't you make this meeting? Why didn't you do this? You need to do that. You need to quit drugs. You need to get on the housing list. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you help me with XYZ? By all means, help them. I've taken people to detox centers. I've helped people with housing. I help people get IDs. But I'm not throwing that out there. That's not me. That's not what I do. We got a bunch of other people that do that work. Like I got a guy right now. He's like begging me for a birth certificate, I try to get those things. But even that's secondary. I'm just basically a friend, an accepting friend. Because I feel like that's the thing that is missing. And this leads me into the spiritual component of this, which I believe is what the creator of the universe, if there is such a thing, would want. Right? Like, you don't create a polar bear and then get mad at it when it eats a human. You don't. If you do, you're the one at fault. Polar bears are one of the very few animals on Earth that hunt humans. So you go out there, you're taking pictures of polar bears in your little cage, and he tears that cage apart and eats you. That's on you, buddy. That is on you. And, your spouse and everybody might be sad, but that's not the polar bear's fault, okay? And I feel that way about humans. Humans are a mixed up, crazy bunch of people. I believe that we have put this, cerebral cortex, we bolted this weird part of the human part of our brain onto a regular, it's like taking a Pinto car. You remember those Pintos? And putting a Mustang engine in it. And then being upset that the body falls apart when you're going, 0 to 80 in 6 seconds or whatever. Like, no, 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 no. That's what a human is. It's out of its depth. It's like being a human is so complicated. We are aware of so much and process so much. And so, of course, we're addicted. Of course, we're angry. Of course, we're depressed. Of course, we're homeless. Of course, we're less than what we should be. And if you can't see yourself in a homeless person and the behaviors of a homeless person, you aren't looking close enough. And so that brings me to the Church of the Nomadic Spirit, which is basically a church of acceptance, of live and let live. And we talk about having church service on Sunday mornings. Church service typically involves donuts from a dumpster, rolled cigarettes, and coffee, and now some music and pot, because pot's legal. And sometimes, if the mood strikes, I might say a sermon, which is basically what you're getting right now. Something maybe to help expand your way of thinking. I do not believe that homeless people are wrong. I believe society is wrong. I believe that there is a very narrow way of living in America, and if you don't live that way, you are chastised and berated and hated. If you can't afford to live in one of these stupid boxes that are wildly overpriced all across the country, then you're a failure. And I do not abide by that belief. I believe there's many ways to live. I believe you can live on a boat, in a car, in a tent, in a tree, in a hole, in a sewer. I can believe you can live wherever you want to live. And I think society should give you space to live the way that you want to live. But they're not. They're like, you can't live on Sage's property. You can't live in a tent. You can't live in that abandoned property. They tell these people all the things they can't do, but tell them nothing of what they can do. They're like, go to the shelter. Well, I've been kicked out of the only men's Christian shelter because I wore shorts one time. A guy a couple days ago, he said, I got kicked out of the Haven Arrest. I said, why? Because, I didn't show up. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you got to show up every day. If you don't show up every day, every night, you get kicked out for a certain amount of time. I forget, it's 30, 60 days, something like that. Including, apparently, if you go to the hospital for one night. They assume that if you leave, you must have gotten your sheltering figured out. And so you're thrown out for a long time, 60 to 90 days. So yeah, people get kicked out of the only men's shelter in Akron all the time. The women's shelters are always on a wait list. You can't just walk into a women's shelter. You can't walk into the battered women's shelter and say, hey, I'm being battered. They'll send you out and say, you got to call. Like, I don't have a phone. Well, find a phone. Which I'm not dissing any of that. I know those do sound like disses. But no, they're their rules. And my rules are crazy. My ideas are crazy. Their ideas are crazy. I'm glad anybody's doing anything. Do whatever you want to do. If you're trying to be positive to this community, I'm all for it. I'm just telling you the reason I do what I do is because of these other things. Okay? That's all. I'm just a live and let live acceptance kind of guy. I'm a libertarian. Some people call me a humanitarian libertarian. Like, what are we doing telling people how to live their lives? What are we doing? If you're not hurting other people, leave those people alone. But we don't. And everybody's doing it. Republicans, Democrats. It's crazy. It's crazy. Republicans are telling people what they can and can't wear. Democrats are telling them what they can and cannot say. It's bananas. It's bananas. So I'm just a response to that. So basically, what I need usually is somebody to open and somebody to close. You don't even have to be there the whole time. I'm not asking for that. They can handle it themselves. So whenever you want to come, we can arrange it. Okay? Thank you so much for wanting to be part of our community. If you heard this and you're like, this is terrible, this guy is insane, fine. You're right. There's many other places that might be better suited to you. But I will not let you chastise, talk down, berate, belittle anyone in my presence. If I find out, you will get kicked out. You understand? So you just have to know what you're walking into, and if you don't think that's for you, I totally understand. But that's basically why I wanted to make this video, so you knew what you were getting into. All right. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to working with you. All right. See ya.